Hi, I'm Ethan. Let me tell you about the night my entire family flew to Malibu for my brother's luxury birthday bash and left me alone on mine. But guess who showed up instead? The woman who planned that party. My ex, with a suitcase and a folder containing the idea my brother once stole from me. What followed? The internet exploded, my family collapsed, and I realized I never needed revenge. Just peace. It was a Saturday morning in late May when I walked into the grocery store on 3rd Avenue looking for a decent chocolate cake. The place was nearly empty, just a few early risers grabbing coffee and eggs. I wasn't expecting much. I just needed something small, maybe with strawberries on top. Not too fancy, not too sad. That day marked my 36th birthday. Not that anyone in my family remembered, or maybe they did. They just chose to be somewhere else. The news came the night before. My brother Ryan was throwing a massive birthday party for himself in Malibu. Open bar, live band, black tea. It was all over his Instagram story. I saw it by accident when I opened the app to check a client message. There he was standing next to a giant champagne tower toasting to the weekend, with that signature smirk he wore when he knew the world revolved around him. It didn't surprise me. Ryan had always known how to pull attention. When we were kids, he could sneeze and the whole room would bless him in unison. I could win a school award and barely get a nod. And now at 38, he was the golden boy of our family. Founder of Rylotech, recently profiled in Forbes. Living in a glass box house overlooking the ocean. Me, I was in Seattle, still renting, still doing my job as a senior financial consultant. Still getting dinner alone most nights. But I was good at what I did. I had clients who trusted me, a life that was quiet but honest. That used to be enough. Until yesterday when Mom called to say they wouldn't be coming up for my birthday this year. "We just think it's important to support Ryan right now," she said, voice bright like she was delivering good news. "He's under a lot of pressure with the IPO coming. And well, it's a milestone year for him too, isn't it?" I didn't argue. I just said, "Sure, of course I understand." Then I hung up and stared at the wall for a while. So now here I was holding a plastic box with a 6-inch chocolate cake, wondering if I should get candles or just skip the whole thing. I picked up a small pack anyway. It felt pathetic but also necessary. Back at the apartment, I placed the cake in the fridge and looked around. The place was clean, quiet, full of books and plants. It was mine. Every inch of it earned. Every corner a choice. But sometimes it felt like a well-decorated cave. I texted Marcus to see if he was still coming by. He replied with a thumbs up. Marcus had been my friend since college, one of the few people who never made me feel like I had to prove anything. Just having him around would be enough. I lit a candle on the coffee table, poured myself a glass of red, and sat down. The silence was loud. I didn't feel bitter. Not exactly. Just tired. This wasn't the first birthday my parents had skipped. There was one when I turned 15. Ryan had a regional math competition the same weekend and everyone went to cheer for him. I stayed home with my aunt, who forgot it was my birthday until dinner. That night I ate frozen pizza and watched reruns. I had convinced myself back then that it didn't matter. That I didn't need balloons or attention. That being overlooked meant I had more freedom. But even at 36, a part of me still hoped it would change. I thought of Ava for a second. She was probably at the Malibu party now, managing the guest list or arranging flowers. She always had a way of making chaos look elegant. It had been almost 10 years since we ended things, and sometimes I still thought about what might have happened if I had fought harder for her. If I had been the kind of man her family approved of. The buzzer rang. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans, and buzzed Marcus in. At least I wouldn't be alone tonight, At least someone remembered. I walked to the door, the faint hum of city life seeping through the window. Somewhere out there, Ryan was probably raising a glass, basking in applause. And here I was, lighting my own candle in a quiet room that smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood. It was enough, or at least I told myself it was. I placed the cake knife next to the stack of plates, adjusted the single string of lights on the balcony, then stepped back to look at the table. 3 wine glasses, a bowl of mixed nuts, the cake, and a tiny vase with 1 sunflower I picked up from the corner store on a whim. It was just enough to pretend it was a celebration, but anyone walking in would know it wasn't. I kept checking my phone even though I told myself I wouldn't. No texts, no missed calls, no surprise messages from Mom or Dad. I hadn't expected them, but still. A man can lie to himself only so many times before it starts to crack. A memory came back uninvited. It was my 15th birthday. The plan was simple. We were going to have pizza at home, a few friends over, nothing big. I had even made the playlist myself, burned it onto a CD the week before. But that morning, everything changed. Ryan's math coach called. He had qualified for the regional championship, and the competition was the same weekend. I remember standing by the kitchen counter listening to Mom cancel everything over the phone. She didn't even look at me, just said we'd celebrate mine next week. That week never came. Ryan won 3rd place. The trophy sat on the mantel for years. My party was never mentioned again. That was the first time I realized that in our family, excellence didn't just get rewarded, it got everything. And quiet consistency, the kind I carried, got you ignored. I poured another glass of wine and turned on some music, something low and instrumental. The hum of it filled the apartment gently, but the silence underneath stayed loud. In 2017, I had tried to change that. I had spent months building a business plan for a financial app. Something lean, accessible, aimed at young people who were underserved by traditional banks. I called it Sprout. Back then I had this naive belief that good ideas would speak for themselves, that family could be trusted, so I shared it with Ryan. He had just raised his first seed round for a project that hadn't taken off. I thought maybe we could build something together, that for once he might see me as an equal. He smiled when he read through the pitch deck, asked smart questions, gave advice. He said it needed polish but had potential. I was thrilled. It felt like a turning point. Then a month later, Rylotech announced a new initiative, a mobile-first platform for financial literacy. They called it Grow. Same model, same target audience, even the onboarding flow looked eerily similar to what I had shown him. I didn't say anything. At first, I convinced myself it was coincidence. Then denial gave way to anger, but by the time I was ready to confront him, it felt too late. He had press coverage, investors, momentum, and I had nothing. I showed Marcus everything. He was furious, wanted me to lawyer up. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Our parents would have taken Ryan's side anyway, they always did, so I let it go. Or at least that's what I told myself. Now 7 years later, Grow was one of Rylotech's core products, featured on tech blogs, praised by financial influencers. I had seen commercials for it while folding laundry, the kind of gut punch that sneaks up on you in the mundane. I heard the elevator ding. Marcus was close. I opened the fridge, took out the cake, and placed it on the table. I lit the candles even though I wasn't planning to make a wish. I never did anymore. The buzzer rang. I buzzed him in. Moments later, he stepped in holding a paper bag and a 6-pack. "You went all out," he said with a grin, looking at the setup. "Real 5-star vibes." I laughed more out of habit than amusement. Marcus set the beer down, pulled me into a brief hug, then flopped onto the couch. "They call you?" he asked. I shook my head. He didn't say anything, just nodded like he expected it. We sat there for a moment, the candles flickering gently between us. "You remember that app I was building back in 20?" I said. "Sprout." "Of course. You were obsessed with that thing." "Yeah. You remember how it died?" His face stiffened. "You really want to go there?" I nodded. He leaned back, eyes scanning the ceiling. "You trusted him, man. That's what sucks the most. Not even the idea. It's that you thought he'd stand by you." "I know. So what now?" he asked. "You want to take this public?" "I don't know." "Probably not." "What's the point, closure?" I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "That's not real. Closure's just a word people use when they want to stop feeling bad about things that didn't end right." He didn't argue, just opened a beer and handed me one. We toasted without words. Later, as he helped me cut the cake, I felt something shift. Not closure, not peace. Just a small crack in the wall I had built around that old wound. A little more air getting in. Marcus put on a movie. We didn't really watch. The room grew darker, the candles melted low, and somewhere in the silence between two lines of dialogue, I found myself wondering what Ava would say if she knew the whole story. But that was a thought for another night. Marcus stood by the window, tapping his beer bottle against his knee, staring out like he was waiting for something to arrive. He hadn't said much since we finished the cake, just little comments about the movie or a joke now and then to keep things light. But I could tell he had something else on his mind. "You think she's there tonight?" he asked finally. I didn't have to ask who he meant, I guess. Probably. "She planned the whole thing." "You didn't invite her." I shook my head. He raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Instead, he sat down again, cracking open another beer. "She probably would have come," he said after a pause. I stared at the flickering candle stubs, now misshapen lumps of wax on ceramic. "That's not the point," I said. "Maybe not, but it might have meant something. Closure or whatever. That word again." Marcus shrugged, took a sip, and leaned back. I hadn't seen Ava since her father's retirement gala in 2018. We didn't speak then, just nodded across the room like strangers who knew too much about each other. Before that, it had been years. We met in college sophomore year at Berkeley. She was studying event management and international business. I was working 2 part-time jobs while taking 18 credits, living off ramen and bulk coffee. She wore linen skirts, smelled like cardamom, and had this way of laughing with her whole body. I didn't think someone like her would even notice me, let alone fall in love with me. But she did. And for 2 years it was easy. No pressure, no games. We read poetry on rooftops, shared fries at midnight, made promises we were too young to understand. Then the summer before graduation, everything cracked. Her parents invited me to dinner. It was at this country club in Napa, full of people who wore loafers without socks and talked about hedge funds like they were sports teams. I brought a bottle of Merlot I couldn't afford. I thought it was a gesture. Her dad barely looked at it. He asked about my future, and I told him I wanted to build something from scratch, maybe a tech firm, maybe finance. He smiled in that polite, dismissive way people do when they hear something cute from a child. Later that night, Ava told me her mother had concerns, that I didn't fit into their world, that I was kind but lost. I laughed at first. Then I realized she wasn't joking. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just told her I understood. She cried, said it wasn't fair, said she didn't want to lose me. But slowly the calls faded. The visits stopped and the silence grew louder than anything we had ever said to each other. I had no idea she would end up working with Ryan. I saw her name on the press release when Rilo Tech announced the party. Ava Kingsley Events. She had built quite a name for herself in LA. Celebrities, tech giants, gala fundraisers. Her clients were always on the cover of something glossy. Ryan must have found her through one of those elite referral chains he belonged to. Or maybe he remembered her from the one holiday season she spent at our house. That dinner where Mom kept asking her about wine pairings and Ryan said she could probably do better than dating a finance intern. I never told him we had dated, never told anyone in the family. You should talk to her, Marcus said, interrupting my spiral. About what? About anything. About the fact that she knew you before the world taught you to fold in on yourself. I stared at him, unsure if it was the wine or the hour making him sound like a therapist. You're reaching, I said. Maybe. Or maybe I just hate seeing you bury stuff like this. I stood up, walked to the balcony. The city hummed below. Cars moved like fireflies in the distance, windows lit in random patterns. Somewhere a siren wailed, but it felt far away. I pictured her in Malibu in a silk dress, clipboard in hand, telling someone where to place the string lights, making sure the champagne flutes sparkled just right. She had always been meticulous about beauty, not vanity, just the balance of things, the way a room could feel right if you listened hard enough. I hadn't realized how much space she still took up in my mind. You think she even remembers me? I asked without turning. Marcus let out a short laugh. You're not that forgettable man. I stayed there a while, letting the breeze cool my skin. The night had stretched thin like it was waiting for something to break it. Eventually, Marcus yawned, grabbed his coat, and gave me a soft punch on the shoulder. Happy birthday, E. Thanks for coming. Always. After he left, I sat alone again, this time without the music, without the wine. I thought about what it would be like if Ava walked through that door, if she saw the tiny cake, the cheap candles, the mismatched plates. Would she pity me? Apologize, say nothing? Or maybe she'd smile the way she used to when we had nothing but time and say it was enough. But she wasn't coming. Not tonight. And I didn't know what hurt more, that she was working for Ryan, or that part of me still cared. The ballroom at the Century Grand Hotel shimmered with gold and glass. Every table was draped in ivory linen centered with tall floral arrangements of white orchids and eucalyptus. The chandeliers sparkled overhead like they had been waiting years for this moment. The staff moved quietly, swiftly, dressed in black with earpieces and clipboards. And in the center of it all, Ava Kingsley stood with her arms crossed, scanning the room like a conductor listening to the first note. It was 2 hours until guests would arrive. Ryan Miller's birthday party was set to be the event of the year. Ava had spent the past 6 weeks designing every second of it. From the signature cocktail to the timing of the live jazz quartet, every detail was hers. She didn't flinch when Ryan came up behind her, clapping a hand on her shoulder. Looking perfect as always, he said. She gave him a nod, professional, cool. Just doing my job. He smirked and walked off to speak with someone from the LA Times. Ava turned back to the lighting crew. There was always more to fix. A shadow too harsh, a centerpiece tilted just enough to be noticed by someone with sharp eyes. She lived in the details. It kept her focused. It kept her from thinking about things she didn't want to think about, like Ethan. She hadn't meant to look him up. But 2 nights ago, in the middle of finalizing the seating chart, her fingers had typed his name before her mind could catch up. Just curiosity, she told herself. Just closure. Instead, she found a quiet profile, a few tagged photos from work events, a single picture of him holding a book in a small apartment full of light. He looked tired but real, not like the polished faces she dealt with every day. Now, with the room almost ready, Ava headed backstage to the green room to double-check the champagne schedule. The hallway smelled like fresh paint and cleaning products. She passed a pair of servers whispering, then turned the corner and stopped. The door to the VIP lounge was slightly open. Inside, Ryan's parents were speaking in low, clipped voices. Ava paused, not out of intent, just instinct. The tone was too sharp to ignore. "You don't think we should split it at all?" Laura Miller asked. "Of course not," Charles replied. "Ryan built this legacy. Ethan doesn't deserve a cent. He'd squander it. That's still our son." "Barely." Charles laughed, a sound Ava had never heard from him before. "He never had the drive. We gave him chances. He never knew what to do with them. Ryan is the future. Ryan should have it all." Ava's hand went cold on the doorknob. She took a step back, her heels suddenly too loud on the polished tile. She turned away before she could hear more. Backstage, she found a stool and sat staring at the floor. She remembered Ethan coming out of the campus library at midnight, arms full of books, still smiling because he had figured out how to balance 3 jobs and a full course load. She remembered the little notes he used to leave in her coat pockets, always with bad puns and perfect timing. He was never lazy, he was never lost, he was just alone. She pressed her palms to her eyes. The weight of the chandelier above the ballroom suddenly felt like it was pressing on her chest. "You okay?" her assistant Ellie asked, poking her head in. "Fine," Ava replied quickly. "Just a migraine. I'll be out in a second." Ellie disappeared. Ava exhaled slowly. Her mind raced. She had always justified working with Ryan as just business. He paid well. He had reach. It wasn't personal. But now, with that one overheard conversation, everything tilted. It wasn't just about Ethan being left out. It was about how invisible he had been to the people who were supposed to love him most. Ava looked at her schedule clipboard, then tossed it gently onto the vanity. She didn't know what she would do yet, but something had shifted. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure which side of the room she belonged on anymore. She didn't go back to the ballroom. Instead, Ava walked past the catering setup, nodded at the florist arranging the last row of centerpieces, and slipped through the service hallway until she reached the loading dock. The air was sharp and clean, a contrast to the perfume of lilies and champagne inside. She pulled out her phone and searched for Marcus's number. It had been years since they last spoke, but she still remembered his blunt honesty, the way he never danced around the truth. The phone rang twice. "Hello." "Hey, Marcus, it's Ava Kingsley." A pause. "Well, that's unexpected. I know. I wouldn't call if it wasn't important. What's going on? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Back in 2017, the app Ethan was building, the one called Sprout. Yeah, I remember. Did Ryan steal it?" Silence. A shift in his breathing. "Ava, where is this coming from? Just answer me, please." "Yes, he did. Ethan showed him everything. Ryan copied the structure, the branding, even the financial model, and your client list, that too. He launched Grow 6 weeks later. Ethan never got credit, never said a word about it. He thought going public would wreck the family." "Did his parents know?" Marcus exhaled hard. "They did. I told them. They said it wasn't worth upsetting the dynamic, said Ethan was too sensitive, needed to toughen up, told me not to get involved again." Ava sat on a crate near the dock door, phone trembling in her hand. Her face burned, but the rest of her felt cold. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You okay?" "No. But thank you." She ended the call. For a while she didn't move. The sound of trucks and distant horns filled the space around her. Her fingers hovered over her screen again. This time she opened her old email, the one she had used when she still worked freelance before going full agency. The one Ethan had once sent her countless drafts and outlines to for feedback. She typed his name into the search bar. There it was, May 2nd, 2017. Subject line, "Need your thoughts." She opened it. Inside was a full PDF, 3 attachments, and a note. Don't know if this is crazy, but if it works, it'll help people. Let me know what sucks. She opened the files. Wireframes, budget sheets, brand mood board. It was Sprout, every piece of it. Months before Grow ever existed, and she remembered that night. She had shown it to Ryan while they were at dinner, just casually bragging about how thoughtful Ethan was. How sharp. Ryan had nodded, asked 1 or 2 questions. She hadn't thought anything of it. Until now. Ava stood up, slipped her phone back into her bag, and walked briskly back inside. Her heels echoed off the marble as she headed straight to the production booth. Ellie was reviewing lighting cues with the stage manager. Ellie, can you handle the rest of the night? What, Ava? You okay, I trust you. Everything's locked. You know what to do, but Ava. I have to go. Ellie blinked confused, then nodded slowly. Ava didn't wait. She left through the staff exit, caught a cab on the corner, and headed for LAX. At the airport, she booked the next flight to Seattle. In the terminal, she sat near the window watching the planes taxi. Her phone buzzed with notifications from Ryan, missed calls from the Millers, and a dozen texts from colleagues. She silenced it all. She had once believed success was enough. That building something beautiful, efficient, powerful meant she was doing good. But now success looked like shadows dressed in gold, and she couldn't stay in the light if it meant standing on someone else's back. Ava didn't know what she would say to Ethan, or if he'd even want to see her. But the truth couldn't stay buried anymore, and neither could she. I had just finished stacking the last set of plates when the knock came. It was soft, almost uncertain, but in the stillness of the evening it might as well have been a drumbeat. I opened the door. Ava stood there, hair wind-blown, suitcase in one hand, the other clutching something wrapped in old brown paper. Her eyes looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying something heavy for too long. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. Not right away. Behind me, Marcus and Kelly were laughing over something in the kitchen. The record player was humming a soft jazz tune. The table was still cluttered with half-empty wine glasses and a cake missing 2 slices. "Hi," she said. "Hi. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, like the apartment was sacred ground she wasn't sure she had the right to enter. She looked at the decorations, the small pile of gifts on the counter. The paper crown Marcus had made me wear for 5 minutes before I threw it off. "You had people over?" "Just a few." "I didn't know if I was welcome," she said quietly. I shrugged. "Depends on why you're here." She turned to me then fully, and I saw it, the apology forming before she could find the words. The weight in her shoulders, the tremble in her jaw. "I was wrong, Ethan. I waited. About a lot of things. About leaving. About what I thought success meant. About who I believed. I should have asked you back then. I should have fought harder for us. For the truth." She placed the wrapped object on the table carefully. Her fingers lingered a second too long. "This is yours," she said. I looked at it, slowly pulled at the paper. Inside was a manila folder. My handwriting, diagrams, printed mock-ups. It was the original draft of Sprout, the first one I ever made, the one I thought had disappeared when my laptop crashed, the one I assumed Ryan had somehow copied from memory. "You kept this. You sent it to me for feedback. I archived it and forgot. Until tonight." Marcus had walked closer, sensing the shift in air. Kelly stayed in the kitchen, pretending not to eavesdrop, but clearly listening. I turned back to Ava. "Why now?" "Because I overheard your parents. Because I called Marcus. Because I finally saw what I didn't want to see before. And what's that? That I helped the wrong person. That I've been building my life on silence and convenience. And I don't want to do that anymore." The room felt too small for a moment. I don't need your pity, I said. It's not pity. Then what is it? It's me choosing differently. Ava looked down, took a breath. I've spent years making things beautiful for people who never deserved it. Tonight I realized I don't want to decorate their lies anymore. I want to stand next to something honest, even if it's quiet, even if no one claps. I didn't have words, she stepped back uncertain. You don't have to forgive me. I just wanted you to know. Marcus looked at me, eyebrows raised, waiting, not pushing. I glanced around the room, the flickering candles, the low music, the people who had shown up for me not because of who I was to the world, but because of who I was to them. I pulled out a chair. Stay, eat, there's cake. Ava blinked fast, then nodded, and just like that, she sat down across from me. No declarations, no dramatic music, just a simple act of being there. And for the first time in years, the room didn't feel like it was missing something. The next morning started quietly. The kind of quiet that felt like standing in fresh snow, where even sound seemed to hesitate. I woke up before the sun rose, made coffee, and sat on the couch in the same clothes I wore the night before. Ava had taken the guest room. She hadn't said much after dinner. None of us had. It was one of those nights that didn't need words to leave something behind. By the time the sky started to shift, my phone buzzed. Then again, and again. At first I ignored it. Group texts from work, some old friends, a couple of vague messages like, "Wow, man, and you okay?" It wasn't until Marcus texted a link that I clicked. It was a blog post, long form, titled "What If We've Been Cheering for the Wrong Brother?" Written by Grace Lancaster, Ava's best friend. I hadn't seen her since college, but I remembered her wit and that fearless voice. She didn't pull punches then. Apparently she hadn't started now. The post was sharp, eloquent, and somehow still kind. It never named me directly, but it didn't need to. It told the story of two brothers. One who built a kingdom from stolen bricks and one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. It spoke about ambition that ignored ethics and loyalty that demanded too high a price. Then it talked about a woman who realized she had been decorating a lie and chose to walk away. It ended with the sentence, "Sometimes the right one isn't the loudest. Sometimes he's just the one who kept showing up." Attached was a clip. Ava at my front door holding the wrapped folder, her voice low, shaking slightly as she said she wanted to choose the right one. Someone must have recorded it from the sidewalk, maybe one of the neighbors, or maybe Grace had been waiting just in case. The hashtag trended by noon. Choose the right one. It flooded Instagram, TikTok, even LinkedIn. People shared their own stories of being overlooked, of doing the right thing and being forgotten, of loving someone quietly. The post had nearly 500,000 views within a day. Ethan Walker became a symbol of silent endurance, a buzzword for integrity, for justice in family shadows. Some of the messages made me laugh. One tweet said, "Ethan is the older sibling energy I needed this week." Another said, "Protect Ethan Walker at all costs." Others hit harder. "He reminds me of my dad, the kind of man who gave everything and never asked for credit. He's what happens when love is conditional and success is redefined by someone else's spotlight." I didn't respond to any of it. I barely moved from the couch. Ava sat across from me, scrolling too. She didn't say anything either. I didn't need her to. Eventually, the media picked it up. Morning shows started analyzing the psychology of family favoritism. A podcast did a full segment on tech startup thefts and the ethics of NDA silence. Ryan didn't call. Neither did my parents. But his assistant emailed a cease and desist to Grace. Grace posted it online with the caption, "When you can't dispute the truth, you try to bury it." People loved her for that. Somewhere in all of this, I felt a strange hollowing. Like the world had finally turned its head toward me, only to stare with eyes too wide. It was everything I thought I wanted, and yet it wasn't. Because now people weren't just talking about what happened. They were talking about me, picking apart my silence, my passivity, my lack of fight, as if being decent was something to dissect, as if not burning the house down made me weak. I didn't want to be a symbol. I didn't want to be anyone's lesson. I just wanted to be a man who built his life back without having to prove he deserved it. I turned off my phone. Ava looked up. Too much, I nodded. She set her phone down and came to sit beside me. "You didn't ask for this," she said. "No, but maybe you needed it. Maybe." She didn't press further. We just sat, letting the storm swirl outside us, letting the version of me the internet had created exist without our participation. For the first time, I understood what people meant by visibility being a double-edged sword. It shines light on the truth but also exposes every scar. And while I was grateful, something inside me still whispered that being seen too late didn't make the past any easier to carry. The phone rang just after noon. I didn't recognize the number, but I picked up anyway. "Ethan." Ryan's voice was clipped, controlled, the kind of calm that signaled something was already boiling underneath. "Hey, so this is how you want to play it?" I didn't answer. "You think this is funny? You think dragging the family name through the mud, letting strangers turn this into a damn circus is some kind of noble stand?" I looked out the window. It had started to rain, soft and steady. I didn't drag anything. "I haven't said a word. Don't play innocent. That woman you used to date lit a match and now everything's on fire. You could have stopped it. She acted on her own." Ryan scoffed. "Yeah. And I'm supposed to believe she just happened to fly across the country, show up at your birthday, and conveniently leak every detail of a story that makes me look like the villain if the shoe fits." Silence. Then a slow exhale. "You always had a way of playing the victim, Ethan. Quiet, pitiful, noble little Ethan. Always too proud to fight, but never too humble to resent. I should have hung up then. But I didn't. You stole from me, Ryan." His voice sharp. "You didn't patent it. You never made it public. You handed it to me. Don't pretend this is some moral outrage. You were naive. I was smart. That's business." I almost laughed. "Almost. You're not mad that people are angry. You're mad they finally see you. You're going to regret this. I'm not the one who should." He was breathing heavier now. "If you don't shut this down, I'll sue. Grace, Ava, everyone involved. I'll make sure no investor touches your name again. You think public sympathy protects you? I built Rilo Tech. You're a blip. Don't make this war." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shake. "Do whatever you have to do." And then I hung up. Ava was in the kitchen staring at me. I didn't realize she had come in. That was him. I nodded. She walked over, handed me her phone. A voice memo was open. "What's this?" "Just listen." I pressed play. It was a recording. Muffled at first, then clearer, my parents' voices, a conversation I had never meant to hear. Margaret Ryan always knew how to take charge. Ethan's just softer. "Gerald, he means well. But let's be honest, the company wouldn't have survived a week in his hands, Margaret. That's why we didn't leave anything to chance. Ryan earned it. Ethan, he's fine. Gerald, he'll be okay. He always figures something out." I stopped the recording. Ava looked at me, expecting anger. I only smiled. That's the nicest thing they've said about me in years. "Ethan, it's fine." "No, it's not." But I wasn't lying. It really didn't sting like I thought it would. Maybe because I had already suspected every word. Maybe because hearing it out loud made it less powerful. They've already decided who I am. Nothing I do will change that. She took a step closer. "But you're not doing this for them." "No, I'm not." Later that day, I got emails from my mother, my father, one from my aunt, all of them asking me to release a statement to clarify that I had no intention of pursuing legal action, that this was all a misunderstanding, that families had disagreements but it shouldn't play out in the media. I didn't reply. For the first time, Ryan was dealing with something he couldn't spin, couldn't charm, couldn't crush with money or power. He was watching control slip through his fingers, and I wasn't doing a thing to stop it. 2 days later, I got an email from Marcus, no subject line, just a PDF attachment and a message. Thought you should see this. It was left on a printer at my firm by accident. It was a copy of my parents' most recent will, dated 3 months ago. Every asset, every account, every piece of property listed under Ryan's name. Not a single mention of me, not even a courtesy clause. I stared at the page for a long time, trying to decide whether it hurt or simply confirmed what I already knew. I forwarded it to Grace without comment. Within the hour, she had written a follow-up post, the will that left out the quiet son. It exploded. Screenshots of the document circulated everywhere. Legal experts weighed in on inheritance ethics. Therapists posted threads about generational neglect. TikTok was full of teary videos from users recounting their own stories of being overlooked. Then Ava posted the recording. It was just under 2 minutes. Enough to make everything crystal clear. My parents alone in their home, unaware they were being recorded. My father's voice low and tired, my mother sharper, cutting through. Gerald, we've done enough. Ethan will survive, he always does. Margaret, that's not surviving. That's him clinging. We need to be free of that responsibility. Gerald Ryan has the company, the legacy. Ethan doesn't need anything from us, Margaret. Exactly. It's time we made that clean. Ava released the clip without fanfare. No dramatic caption, just the words, the truth. It went viral in less than an hour. Suddenly everything shifted. This wasn't just a story about a stolen app or a forgotten birthday. It was about what families choose to value, what they throw away. The comments turned into a chorus of disbelief and fury. Corporate watchdog accounts started tagging Rylotech in calls for accountability. Several nonprofits issued public statements severing partnerships with the company. A major investor tweeted that they were reevaluating their involvement. News vans parked outside my parents' gated community. Reporters knocked on their door. No one answered, but neighbors said they saw my mother crying through the blinds. Ryan went silent, and through all of it I stayed home. I didn't post, didn't comment, didn't reach out to anyone. Marcus texted updates, Grace forwarded press inquiries. Ava hovered like a shield, but I kept to the shadows, watching everything unfold like it was happening to someone else. It felt surreal. All my life I had believed that staying quiet was the price of peace, that speaking up would only break what little family I had. But the family had already broken itself. And now the world could see the cracks I had tried to patch over with silence. I wasn't angry, not anymore, just tired. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't touch. Ava sat with me that night. We didn't talk about the headlines or the fallout. We watched old movies and ate leftover cake. At one point, she reached over and took my hand. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, then shook my head. "I don't know. That's fair." I looked at her, really looked. She wasn't the girl I used to know, and I wasn't the man I thought I'd become. But maybe we were both a little closer to the truth. Maybe that was enough, at least for tonight. The next morning, Ava stood by the window staring at the light bleeding through the clouds. Her coffee sat untouched on the counter. "Do you want to go public with everything?" she asked quietly. I was still in bed, propped against the headboard, her question floating in the stillness of the room. No. She turned to me, searching. Are you sure? I nodded slowly. If I did, I wouldn't be any better than them. I don't want to become someone who trades pain for applause. Her eyes shimmered and she looked away quickly. I sat up and stretched, letting the quiet settle again. I never wanted to win Ava. I just wanted to stop being measured against someone I was never allowed to compete with. She blinked back tears, and when she stepped closer, I could see the weight she had carried. The guilt, the unspoken regrets. You should hate me, she said. I don't. Why not? Because I understand. We all make choices. You made one then. You're making another now. She moved to the edge of the bed and sat beside me. I reached for her hand. There was nothing romantic in the moment, nothing that promised anything beyond what it was, but it was enough. You kept the draft, I said. She smiled, a little embarrassed. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I'm glad you didn't. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I let it rest there. No future plans, no dramatic resolutions. Just two people who had seen too much and finally found each other on the quieter side of the storm. We sat like that for a long time. No one came to interrupt. No messages buzzed through. The world outside could wait. In that stillness, I realized something. I didn't need justice to feel whole. I just needed peace. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of being seen exactly as I was. The media kept calling. Networks, podcasts, YouTubers. Grace forwarded dozens of requests for interviews. Ava filtered my inbox like a bodyguard. I turned down every single one. Instead, I spent the next few days going through old journals. Notebooks full of early app ideas, rough sketches, and half-baked concepts. Buried between pages was a name, Sylvia Mendez. My former nanny who looked after me while my parents traveled for Ryan's science fairs and debate tournaments. She used to pack my lunches with notes written in crayon. She made me birthday cupcakes when everyone forgot. She took me to the park and listened when no one else did. She passed away in 2016, no funeral invite, no obituary notice, just a call from her daughter letting me know. I decided to do something. I contacted a local education foundation and set up a scholarship in her name. The Sylvia Mendez Opportunity Grant, for first-generation college students from underrepresented backgrounds. No flashy press release, just one quiet donation and a mission. Grace found out and insisted on creating a simple landing page for it. She shared it with a short post. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Donations poured in. Comments talked about forgotten caregivers, unsung mentors, and everyday heroes. Ava walked in one night while I was sorting thank you messages. Did you see Ryan's statement? She asked. No. She handed me her phone. Ryan's face filled the screen. Pre-recorded, overly polished. He spoke about the importance of family, the pain of misunderstandings, and how the internet often distorts the truth. He apologized. Kind of. It was more about optics than remorse. I gave the phone back. That's about what I expected. You're not going to respond, no. Let him spin. I'm not interested in the stage. Instead, I booked a flight. The next morning, I visited my old high school. Nothing had changed, and everything had. The lockers were still painted that awful shade of green. The library still smelled like dust and teenage stress, but the faces were different, younger, wide-eyed. I spoke to a group of seniors in a small classroom. I told them about failure, about resilience, about finding worth outside validation. I didn't mention my family. I didn't talk about betrayal, just the lessons they left behind. One student stayed after to ask if I regretted anything. I thought for a second. No, I said, because every closed door taught me how to build my own. She smiled like she understood. As I walked out, a janitor stopped me. He pointed to a bulletin board. They put your scholarship flyer up. he said. "You're making a difference." I nodded, throat tight. Maybe that was all I ever wanted. Not revenge, just impact. And I finally had it on my own terms. Ava asked me to come to New York. She was working on a new community initiative that paired event professionals with social impact projects, and she wanted my help building out the strategy. "You need a change of air," she said, "and I could use someone who actually gives a damn." I didn't say yes right away. I packed slowly. Thought about it for days, but on the morning of my flight, I closed the door to my apartment and paused. In the mail slot, a single envelope stuck out, glossy embossed. Ryan's birthday party invitation, the one I never opened. I took it in, turned it over once, then tossed it into the trash on my way out. At the airport, I moved through security with ease. My carry-on was light. No souvenirs from the last decade. No emotional baggage I hadn't already unpacked. As the plane lifted off, I stared out the window, watching Seattle shrink below me. The buildings, the hills, the misty skyline that had held so many years of silence. I didn't win, not in the way most people measure it. I didn't get an apology that changed everything. I didn't see them beg or fall or even admit. But I got something else: space, dignity, peace. I didn't need to take back what they stole. I just had to stop letting it define me. They would live with their choices, and I would live with mine. I never wanted revenge, just a life I didn't have to justify. And finally, I was living it. This story might be mine, but maybe it's yours too, or someone you know. Maybe you've stayed quiet when the world overlooked you. Maybe you've been the one who never got picked, never got praised, never got seen. Sometimes all it takes is standing up. And when you do, the world gets quiet enough to finally hear you. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs it. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that remind us we are never as alone as we think.